We'll begin with the root chakra, the one that is located in the subtle anatomy system at the tailbone, and it is associated with the element of earth and the color of red. This is the first emotional spiritual development area of a person, and this occurs from their first breath to a year old roughly, but also in the womb. So, and this chakra is the right to be here and the right to have. And that corresponds with feeling safe and having nourishment and feeling like you're wanted. So even though a mother may do this well for her child, if the mother's not doing this for herself, then some of that is going to basically transfer in, the child's first experience of life. It can go even further back than that mother to the lineage, the culture, and geographic region, depending on what is happening. For instance, if there has been war in the area, or if there has been cultural trauma, all of this comes into play automatically. And so it takes a bit of undoing to become balanced. Balance in this chakra looks like health and a feeling of abundance, a feeling of, yeah, I can go out and earn enough money. I can be stable in my job. I can buy the food that I need, and I don't need to overdo it. I'll just have enough. And physically, that's health, the physical and financial health. Now, on the child who does not have this growing up, their first experience, they may develop some patterns of behavior, which they may associate with personality, but they are patterns of behavior to cope with what they learn at this age that they're not able to deal with or to basically process. So that can show up as, on the deficient side, not giving yourself enough to eat, not buying what you need, living so below your means that you're proving to yourself every single day that you don't need much to live. And that goes, onto relationships as well. I don't need anything. I don't need anything. And on the excess of that, the other side, it's the same thing, same experience, but two people might process that differently. On the flip side of that deficiency, the excess shows up as, I need everything. I have a constant need to fill up so that I feel like I have enough, like I have the right to be here. So this might be in buying material things, also in relationships, also in obsessive eating, those types of things. So in disorders of the body, this often shows up in lower back issues, sciatica, and really anything with the digestive system, the bowel, and also some bone disorders, anything below the tailbone. So these are typical disorders that show up when a root chakra is not in balance. And so the life lesson is here, that feeling safe in your surroundings and your community and your family are basic needs. And so we all know this intuitively. No one needs to tell us. So when it's not that way, there is something that comes in and into that development that individual switches and say, this is how I'm going to deal with it. Of course, we can also do things as adults when we realize that this is not who we are, this is our behavior, and this is our method of coping of something that happened long before we had any option about it. We can do things to balance this so that we do feel that we're safe and that we have a right to be here. And it's very important in all the chakras, but especially in this one, because It is the building block. Everything else is on top of it. So if there is a sense of fear on the lowest level, everything else is built on that sense of fear. But it's never too late to go back and readjust that. And that's the beauty of learning more information. The way to adjust the chakra is then related to the earth element, something or things that you enjoy doing out in Mother Nature. So gardening is a great root chakra because there's a stillness, there's a connection, walking in nature, seated meditation, anything where you're close to the earth. And then, of course, there's foods that you can eat that will help with this. So looking into nature, what are the things that are closest to the earth or the deepest, root vegetables, for instance, that can help to balance the chakra. As the parent was to the child, so the mind is to the body. In terms of this chakra, in balancing, it is important that the person who realizes that they are out of balance gets support for learning to basically reparent themselves, give themselves what they need in a healthy way, and come out of that basis of fear into actually existing in a life where you feel like you belong. And beyond doing these grounding exercises and eating grounding food, there's plenty of yoga poses that you can do. Things like, wide-legged forward folds or standing seal, balancing tables, child's pose. There is also, essential oils that you can use, breathing techniques that kind of push that breath down lower so that it can be held out and it can fill in that space rather than breathing up here, which breathing up here is really from a place of fight or flight. So we want to bring that breath down lower. If you're not sure about where you're at in this particular chakra, if you think that you have some sort of imbalance, you can ask yourself, what kind of nurturing did I have as a child? What kind of nurturing did my mother give herself as a child? Were there any surgeries that I was involved with when I was an infant? And then also, beyond that, since we're always developing each and every day of our lives, we can have traumas to this root chakra later on in life. And that trauma looks like something pulling the rug out from under us. We weren't expecting it, and literally just ripping everything that is the stability out from below the feet. And, if you're in a situation where that has occurred, then you can also come back and rebalance. But these things take time, and they take a combination of the movement, of the breathing, of the grounding work, and the discussion of it, right? So the kind of turning it up, like where was it, and seeing it is important. But in order to move through that and actually balance this on a subtle anatomy level, the other work also needs to be done so that it can become balanced, it can stabilize, and it can be the solid platform for everything above it. And now for the second chakra, the sacral chakra. This one is just above the root chakra, so it's in the pelvis, below the belly button and above the tailbone, and it's associated with the color of orange and the element of water. This chakra is the right to feel, and in our development, spiritual, emotional development in life, this begins when, you know, we're several months old to the time that we're a couple of years old. So these are, you know, our toddler years where, you know, the people say, oh no, the terrible twos, right? So this is usually right before the terrible twos, where the child is learning about their environment and what is okay and what's not okay. So the basic right to feel requires exploration. So if there was an environment where a child was able to do that exploration, you know, on their own naturally, and kind of develop their sense of, you know, being separate from the parent, and also being able to find out for themselves how things feel, or even coming back to the parent and then reporting on that and having that be welcomed, you know, that's what this this chakra basically needs in order to then fully and completely develop and move upward. So traumas to this chakra, you know, they happen quite frequently. A lot of it has to do with confined movement as an infant, so not being allowed to have sensate exploration, or, you know, not being able to separate and have the independent movement that is required for this to develop, or not having the safety and support to explore. You know, somebody saying, well, that's bad, I need you to stay with me because that scares me. Of course, this is, now we're getting into both the root and the sacral chakra. And then, of course, within the environment, you know, there needs to be stimulation. It's pretty easy if you're just going to let a kid go outside and crawl around on the ground to have that, but that's not always optimum or safe. You know, so the stimulating things in the environment, to touch, to feel, to taste, all of that stuff, not just to take in, like videos, you know, and this unfortunately occurs a lot in this electronic age. So this also can be traumas where there is some sort of sexual abuse. And, you know, anything like that that says it's really not okay to feel, you need to shut off those feelings. This is going to cause basically a shutdown of development in this area. You know, it could also be physical and emotional abuse for, especially for the child saying and doing the things that they want to explore, not out of a place of being naughty, but out of a place of being human and going through that development. So often, you know, as parents, including myself, I wanted my child to behave a certain way so that it would reflect better on me, because I felt like a well-behaved child is a necessity at that time. You know, but we live and learn. And so now I realized that there were some things that I associated with correct behavior that actually interfered with my child's development. So how this shows up, if there is a balance in this chakra, is, you know, rhythm, graceful movement, a person who is, you know, okay with it, expressing their feelings, not overly so, not overly into anything, just like, this is a part of who I am, it's okay to talk about, it's okay to do, I'm okay to dance, I'm okay, you know, I'm just okay. I can get to be me. And, you know, this leads to healthy boundaries, and this leads to emotional intelligence, because without the feeling free to be, you know, free to feel and experience the world, then you automatically grow up with a sense of, I don't know what my boundaries are. So this is a time where natural boundaries come into play for people. And this can show up in imbalance physically in menstruation, in the reproductive area, and sexual dysfunction, and then the gallbladder and the kidneys, low back pain, and a lack of flexibility. Because the rigidness of this, I need to protect myself, shows up usually in the way someone holds themselves or moves. So also on the deficient side of this, so if someone experienced this as a child, they weren't able to explore safely and with support, then this might show up as you know, frigid, as we talked about in the body, but also like too many boundaries. Oh, you know, well, you know, these people that talk about their boundaries all of the time because they want them to be okay. So they're dealing with some sort of second chakra issue. Because you know, it would be normal for someone to just know what their boundaries are, for instance. Deficient also can lead to a lack of desire, or lack of passion, or lack of feeling authentic, like I'm really, you know, who I'm supposed to be. And then there's usually an associated feeling of guilt with most actions that are outside of this, you know, what is considered okay. Now, on the excess, the flip side, now we have this showing up as basically being sexually promiscuous, like beyond what is safe. And then also in overly strong emotions about things and lacking any boundaries. So this is a lot of excess sacral is showing up in a lot of codependent type of behavior. Yeah, a lot of obsessive compulsive, you know, thing, and this is out of a need to feel that it is okay to feel, trying to fill that up, kind of like going back to the root chakra. This is in the excess, it's trying to fill it up. But in order to balance this chakra, it cannot be done externally. None of these chakras can be balanced externally. You can have help and support to do it, but the work has to be done by the individual. Back to parenting yourself now as an adult. This is, you know, the life lesson is replace guilt with forgiveness and acceptance to feel and to grow. If this chakra remains unbalanced, then just like the root chakra, all the chakras above it will also have some issues. How do you know when it's okay to act? How do you know when it's okay to use your voice, or to trust what you know, or to love even, if you don't even know yourself, because there's been a limited amount of exploration that has been done during that natural stage of development. So if you're wondering as an adult, you know, if you think that you might have some imbalances, you can ask yourself, well, what freedom did I likely have as a toddler? And was there any abuse in my family when I was a toddler, like emotional abuse or substance abuse? Because substance abuse automatically creates the environment that we've been talking about. And then also the people around you, the grown-ups around you, did they actually express intimacy? Was that okay in the house? Was it done in a way that was safe, that was fun, that was freeing and not threatening? So then you can ask yourself as an adult, has anything ever happened in my life that has made me feel that it is not okay to feel? So we can go back to sexual abuse or sexual trauma. Can definitely bring this back, or any time where someone's boundaries are violated in such a way that they had absolutely no control. They were limited, they were restricted, and weren't able to do for themselves what they needed to do. So ways to balance this chakra are, you know, back to the things, you know, that you can eat. These are like usually fruits. I think of mangoes and strawberries, passion fruit, things that are sweet. The root chakra reacts to those very well. And then there's, you know, movement therapy, emotional release, dancing therapy, inner child kind of work. So this is going back to developing that. And you can do that now. You can do that at any time. And then also including yoga poses that can be done, which, you know, there's a lot of Qigong that is really beautiful for this chakra. The Qi massage is probably the easiest one to do. Cat-cows, where you're flexing the spine and you feel the pelvis moving, you know, back and forth. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get some movement, some healthy flow in the pelvis. Cobras, happy babies, bridge, you know, where you're lying on your back and you're lifting up and going down. And then, of course, breathing. Here we want to not press everything down to the root chakra as we were in the root chakra. Here we want to move some things up and down. So elevator breathing or Durga breath, where we're doing segments. So we're basically partitioning off the breath and letting it move, letting the breath explore in the body in a different way. So there's also essential oils, you know, that you can use for this. Anyway, back to what I said before. If you have a problem with the sacral chakra, it will impact all of the chakras above it. And there are ways, though, that you can balance and you can take that behavior that is not serving you in your life, or those thoughts, and you can make a change. It does take time, and it requires some physical, emotional, and mental work at the same time. And so this is all of it together to stabilize that sacral chakra. So now when we get up to the action, which is the one that's next, we've got the stable platform. Now we're moving on to the solar plexus, which is the third chakra, stacked above the root, which is the right to feel safe, and then the sacral, which is the right to actually be your authentic self, explore and feel things in the world. Then we come up to the solar plexus, associated with the color yellow and the element of the sun, and it's just above the belly button. This one is developing around the age of 2 to 4 years old, give or take. And this development, what a person needs in order to have this emotional, spiritual development be healthy for them at that time, is to have some autonomy, you know, have the independence to make decisions about what they do or don't want, and also to discuss those and reflect those back, so that they can learn, you know, where parameters might be, where healthy parameters might be. And, you know, this is a time usually of toilet training, so you also learn, you know, how to control impulses. This is very important development stage. And, you know, appropriate discipline, of course, is going to be necessary for a person to learn where healthy parameters might be, and to develop then the confidence to know, well, you know, this is okay, definitely, you know, and I don't have to feel shame around these things, and these other things might hurt other people or might hurt myself. So this is all very basic development. Traumas to this chakra in development occur in families, cultures, or communities of very narrowly defined behavior. So the parameters are so small that there is no room to really figure out what's okay, because everything has been figured out already for you. And if you want to do something outside of that, then the reflection of others upon you is, that's shameful. Why do you want that? You know, you shouldn't want that. So a person then, as they're developing, starts to question themselves, and then this ego development that is occurring is fused with a sense of shamefulness okay, I want this, I feel I would like to do this, but for some reason I feel shameful about it, so I don't know if I should do that kind of deal. So this one is hard. You know, this is the inner authority to make decisions happening at this very young age. And so parents navigating this, depending on what circumstance, you know, you are in your life, can be difficult to allow a child what they actually need to develop this in a healthy manner. And that is also safe. So when this shows up later on in life as balance, then you see a person who has a very balanced ego, who doesn't confuse emotions of shame or judgment with their actions or other people's actions. When it shows up as an imbalance on the deficient side, that usually shows up as behavior that is passive aggressive. Basically trying to get what is wanted without actually saying that, because that would be shameful, but going about it in a different way. And then it usually doesn't work out. So then that leads to that deficient behavior of blaming others for not having the ability to act. And then on the flip side, the excess shows up as the type A personality, which I myself felt like I was, and I was called the type A personality for a number of years. And I actually thought that was a compliment. I did not realize how close that was actually to narcissism. The ego in the excess is really trying to front, right? How I do know what's right, and I can act, and I will always do what I need to do, and you can count on me to get the job done, to get her done, right? So that isn't how a balanced ego shows up. A balanced ego is, I'm here, I'm willing, and I'm capable, and I'm ready to act in the way that is best in this situation for me, or also for everyone here. And so that looks differently than a type A personality. The type A, or the excess, also is physically usually running their body like a machine. I can get this, you know, competition right under the belt, and I get my trophy, I get another trophy. I've done all those things as well. Our society, and many societies, you know, unfortunately have a lot of people that have an excess or a deficient solar plexus chakra, because it's very, first of all, assuming you were balanced on the root when you grew or when you developed, and then balanced on the sacral, you could still have some things occur in a family environment, just because of the way the daily routine is, or the caretaker, or whatever, that it's not going to be optimum for learning these healthy parameters on action and developing the ego in a way that is very very serving to the authenticity and the, you know, the heart chakra that's above it as well, which we're getting to next, and also from a place of love and not a place of I need to stay out of shame. So this usually shows up as malfunctions like fatigue. Somebody just, you know, they hit the wall, or, you know, a lot of hypertension, high blood pressure, stomach issues, indigestion, liver, because, you know, liver stores a lot of emotions like anger. And, you know, this impact, like I talked about just a moment ago on the other chakras, is that, you know, without feeling, without the ability to act on the feelings in the chakras below, then the actions lack value. So if not balanced below in the sacral and the root, then where do the actions come from? If they're not coming from an authentic, safe place, they're coming from an ego that is not healthy. So that's the problem there from below. And now going upward, all of the chakras upward are affected because the action is superficial. So action superficial when it comes to then the heart and saying and knowing, you know, what we're supposed to do, be, and feel in this world in other relationships, you know, can be this place of constantly navigating how to do this right. If you're thinking that you might have some imbalances, you can ask yourself, like, how much discipline did I have, you know, for a behavior that was outside the normal limits, you know, during this time? For instance, if you wanted to do something and then you said, hey, I think that this is the right thing to do, and you were told, oh gosh, you just don't know. You're too young to understand. You know, there was not a learning about what the parameters are. There was a telling of what the parameters are. And then also those people that were caregivers at an early age, so they didn't have the opportunity to go out and learn for themselves because they were caring for younger siblings, or maybe they were caring for a parent who was going through substance abuse or some sort of emotional abuse. And then we kind of miss this opportunity to develop this right to act for ourselves, which is very essential. And then in the adult life, have you ever had a situation that felt like it busted, like your give a damn? Just like went from, you know, being very able to act and feeling good about that to all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what I do, just doesn't matter. So that might then trigger an imbalance in the solar plexus chakra. And ways to balance this are, you know, anything that is going to strengthen and stabilize the gut area, right? So we're talking about the core, strengthening and stabilizing the core, and, you know, taking risks, especially for those, mostly for those who are deficient. Take some risks, like learn what the parameters are for action for yourself in a way that you get to actually reparent yourself now as you're older. And on the excessive side, for those type A people, you know, not doing some of those things, taking opportunity for relaxation, and, you know, realizing that you can do that without feeling shameful, without feeling less than. Martial arts are really great for this, as well as, you know, any sort of therapy to release anger or shame. So foods for digestion are the foods for this chakra. So things that help digestion, you know, like turmeric, cumin, fennel, those, you know, mints, ginger, that kind of thing. So some of those spices that are going to increase digestion. Also like breath of fire to really pump that abdomen and feel the heat rising there is good. And, you know, things where we're like up on the feet and moving and doing things like in yoga, that might be yogi marches or lunges, stars, you know, archer warrior, you know, or warrior pose, goddess, radiance charger, up, breath of fire, and those kinds of things. And then, of course, there's oils for this too. But when it comes down to it, very integral, very essential to integrate what you're also doing for your root and your sacral chakra into the work that you're doing for solar plexus. Because all of those, these bottom three now are going to drive everything that's going upward. And by the way, if the bottom three aren't working or they aren't balanced, then the thoughts get driven upward without having a sense of being able to do the right thing. And so this leads to a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. So we got to get these bottom three balanced. The heart chakra, anahata, unstuck, unbroken, unhurt. So this chakra then is above the root, above the sacral, and above the solar plexus. So above the right to be here, above the right to feel, above the right to act, and now we have a right to love. So all of the development that has occurred up until this point is somehow showing up in the heart chakra. So the time of development, spiritual, emotional, of this one is typically between 4 and 7 years old. And this is, you know, this shows up in so many ways in people that seem to have a stress in relationships, in intimate relationships, but also relationships with their family and co-workers, community, all the ability to have compassion and openness and kindness to the self and to other people, and to love yourself. All of this occurs right here. Traumas to the development stage of this, you know, is a sense of the love that we received from our parents at this time. So if the love that we received from our parents or caregiver at this time seemed to come with limitations, then that's what we're learning at that time. And then also, like, you know, was there any sort of divorce or a sense of abandonment, maybe a parent having to leave, you know, for a period of time? You know, usually these things happen and people don't intentionally, you know, mean to cause an issue, but this is a natural spiritual emotional development, and a child is going to take this in however they can at that time. They're not processing like adults with the prefrontal cortex fully developed. They're processing this emotion as a child, and even though they might rationalize that this is not something that anybody means, you know, to hurt my heart, it still potentially could. And so it's important to know, you know, how these things affect children, not to change necessarily what might occur during that time, but to approach it in a way that might be more nurturing to the development that is needed at that time. So grief is a big one here too, losing someone that you love. And, you know, there's a lot of different relationships that could be impacted. But biggest one, I think, might be a feeling that a child takes in that others are indifferent. So even in a situation where a parent might be saying, yes, I love you very much, here, I hug you, and, you know, we do all of this together, but there is a sense of indifference. And this may or may not be the case. The parent might very well be dealing with a lot of things on their plate at that time, you know, because they have their own chakra things that they're trying to figure out, or they don't even know about them, right, at that time. So they're doing the best with what they can, and the child takes this in as, I'm missing some love. And this also can be, you know, abuse related to other abuses that happen at this time, because of course that's going to connect with the heart and cause pain. So deficiencies in this area show up as someone who is very kind of antisocial, who wants to stay away from relationships that are sort of intolerant of other people's behavior. They're protecting themselves. They're saying, no, I don't want love, and see why, because this and this and this and this is wrong. So I don't need any of that. Or they just pass on those conditional love traits. Like, if you do things a certain way, then it's okay for me to love you. But until then I don't. But that's something that was transferred from their childhood growing up to the current situation. And then in the excess of this, then we have back to the poor boundaries and the codependency. Someone who's very jealous and see how much I've sacrificed for you. I do this and this and that. I do all of this all of the time. I love you more than anyone could ever love you, blah, 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 blah. So that is an attempt to fill up something that is missing in that person's heart. And of course, we know we can't fill it from the outside, because if there is self-love to begin with, then everything comes from that. So no one else can help us to love ourselves. They can hold up mirrors for us and they can support us, but that is something that we do individually. So a balanced heart chakra shows up as compassion. Number one, so person who can actually feel compassion whether or not they agree with someone else or not. Also someone who can forgive and not kind of dwell on things. Someone who feels that, you know, that they are mainly peaceful in their own selves, and that they have this sense of, you know, they love who they are. Now, when it comes to, you know, how this shows up in the body, physically malfunction, you can actually see this. Usually in a deficient, someone will have a little bit of sunken area in their heart. It's almost like their heart was broken, that it just kind of went back towards their spine. And then immune system problems, pain between the shoulder blades, because anything that is around the heart is going to either be working to protect it, you know, from that deficient status, or in the excess, so guarding it with armor. So the things, you know, that we can ask ourselves as an adult, like, is this still a problem for me if I'm thinking that I might be in balance? Ask yourself, before the age of 8, who did you need the most love from? And why? And did you get it? And the answer to this is usually not as obvious as what you think. And you're going to ask yourself, as an adult, has anyone broke your heart so badly that you actually felt that it was unrepairable? The rejection was so severe that you felt a loss within. And when this occurs, you notice also then what happens is the rigidness or the protection, or this sense of I cannot be compassionate. I can't trust my heart again. So basically saying I can't trust to love myself. So there are ways to balance this, and of course, you know, the same time you work with your heart, it's going to affect everything upward and everything downward as far as the root chakras. If the action as a child was closely tied to caring, meaning parents said, I love you if you do these things, then the chakra that's most affected is the solar plexus. So that's tied to the ego and the will. So actions are tied to love. If there was a sense of rejection as a child, perceived or actual rejection of a child, then this actually leads to a relative shutdown of the right to act, the right to feel, and the right to be safe. So then we need to work with all of those chakras. So just depending on exactly what the situation was, you may be working with all of them below and the heart, or you may just be working with the heart and the solar plexus, talking about those going lower. And then, of course, self-love is the foundation for those above, trusting yourself, feeling connected to others. Comes from a place of self-love, or it doesn't come very well at all or very easily. So things that we can do for the heart is lots of breathing exercises like cannon breath. You can feel that right in your heart. You can do vibrational things like om or hum, 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 where you can feel that moving the tissues around the heart. Working with the arms is going to move all the stuff that's been protecting or shielding the heart so that it can open up and the energy can flow more freely. Food stuff that we can eat is relating to the color of the chakra, which I think I missed, which is green and associated with the element of air. So like broccoli, kale, cilantro, green teas, green, right? And then like we can do kundalini moves that do a really good job of moving kind of the whole area from the thoracic spine up to the neck. So we're really getting into that heart chakra area. We can also do qigong moves where we're actually feels like we're wiping away some of the pain, some of the emotion that's stagnant there in front of the heart. Camel pose is a great one to open up, and if we have any sort of thing that's going on in the heart, that's probably going to bring it out. So of course it's helpful to have somebody to talk to, and journaling is really, really important. Journaling about things that hurt, right? And then writing them out and maybe using that again a month later to write about it again, and then again a month later. Go in as a third person. See, write it out until you can write it out in third person and reparent yourself so that you can see that whatever happened to you does not need to steal your ability to love yourself. Obviously, relationship therapy, and when you realize that you are in relationship with someone who also has a you know, some sort of damage to the heart chakra, then couples therapy is very important, because if both people have damage and they're trying to come to balance in the relationship, then it's going to be very, very difficult to find it individually. Now we move on to the throat chakra. So this is the home of communication and truth. The color of this chakra is blue, and the element is space. This is the right to speak the truth and the right to be heard. The development of this chakra occurs around, you know, adolescence, typically. So between 7 and 12 years. And this is where we learn self-expression and reasoning and being able to communicate and be creative. And we are not afraid of this larger world. We can interact, engage with things that we are in our, you know, community, in our space, in our lives. The traumas that can happen during the spiritual emotional development of this chakra are primarily lies. So lies that either are told to us, or lies that are obvious but nobody is saying the truth. So not saying something to protect is the same as lying. That is how it's taken in by a child, because they don't know how to process it. So whenever we would assume that a certain thing might be okay to hide from a child, especially at this age of adolescence, be aware that in the subtle body, that is taken in as a message, even if it's not being said. So also, threatening for telling the truth. Oh, we have to keep this secret. Nobody can know about this little thing that happens in our house. That is going to be a huge trauma to the right of a person to express themselves. And then just families that don't talk, trust, or feel. And that's going to lead to a deficient or an excess chakra, and the deficient chakra, and that is, I don't feel like I have a voice. Like I don't have the right to speak. And the person might have a weak voice, and they're like, oh, I just can't carry a tone. I'm not loud enough. They speak very quietly. They're not sure that they really want, anyone to hear them, kind of thing. Shyness, afraid of speaking. And then on the excess side, we have this talking, gossiping all the time, telling all of it all the time, and somehow or another missing the point of listening. And, a lot of us have some sort of imbalance with this growing up, and right now, I'd say, well, since the electronic age, so I guess it's been a long time, with the usage of cell phones now, since children they're adolescents when they're getting, the cell phones, and the cell phones necessarily aren't necessarily bad, but the messages that they're getting in social media, many of them are gossiping, talking, telling all of it all of the time, and who's listening? Right? Everybody has a message to speak, but who's listening and who is telling the truth? So how do we develop this knowing of what the truth is, or that we even have a right to speak in all of this talking when all of this is occurring? So how this shows up is physically is like dysfunctions in the throat, in the ears, in the voice, and jaw, TMJ. Holding it in. So if you think that you might have an imbalance, then you can go back and ask yourself, like, what message did I hear when I was a teenager? What message did I speak? So that'll give you some indication as to where you were in your development of that chakra. And then as an adult, did anyone take away my voice? And this can happen legally, right? Career-wise, in, divorce, those types of situations. And then ask yourself, as an adult, what do I hear in my head most of the time? So if you've got some balancing to do, which most of us probably do, the balancing is quiet time. Reducing distractions so that we can actually be present for our thoughts, and we can laser point those thoughts to be more beneficial so we can reparent ourselves. We can sing. Mantra is so great for this chakra. Some days I still feel like I don't have good tone, but it's much better than it used to be since I've been singing a lot for the last couple of years and telling stories. Even like this video for me would be some sort of a therapy for the throat chakra, speaking the message. As far as food, this is something to lubricate the vocal cords, so like fruit juices and water and, light teas, that kind of thing. And in yoga poses, or, often we do the neck rolls, or we might do the shoulder shrugs. So we're moving the energy around the neck that's holding maybe things tightly. And then, you know, Sphinx pose, where you have your forearms down and you're lifting your chin, you're extending the neck and holding it there, kind of in a vulnerable position. As far as the the breathing, you know, lion's breath and Sitali breath are great for this. Lion's breath is where you stick out your tongue. And Sitali is where, you know, you're rolling your tongue up like a straw. And my personal favorite for this one is singing at the top of your lungs to Adele. And the song specifically is, let's see here. Okay, I had it up here in just a moment. So I'm sure you guys know some of Adele's songs, right? There's Hello, but that's not the one that I'm after right now. The one that I'm after is, yes. Okay, so get ready. I'm going to fast forward. Someone like you, I wish nothing but the best for you too. Don't forget me, I beg. I remember your face. Sometimes it hurts. Okay, so the way she moves that range, and she has such emotion in the voice, that's why this is my favorite one to do therapy for the throat. And again, all the different modalities are needed together. This one, though, you might be able to do more work just with like mental therapy, as long as it's talk therapy, because you'll be doing some of that. But the expression of that then needs to go from outside of those walls, so to your own home, and to practice, practice, practice. It takes a while, but eventually get there and there's no more shyness. A life without shyness and a life with truth is liberating to such an extent that it is to the sixth chakra, good luck, the third eye, and this is the home of the right to trust, and trust that what you know is correct and that you can manifest that into purpose. This is associated with the color of the night sky, indigo, and the element of light. There we go, light, yes. So this one is between the throat, the right to speak, and also the crown, which is the right to be connected. So it's very important to fully emotionally and spiritually develop in one's life. And this typically occurs around adolescence. And this is a time where we're figuring out like what we know or want to learn about the world. And traumas to the development of this can be someone invalidating what we think we know. And of course, you know, that can be done without someone really intending to crush someone's, you know, belief in themselves, but that can be how it turns out. And also when things, you know, are deliberately hidden, and go back to the throat chakra, that affects the right to speak, but it also affects the right to know. If I don't really know what the truth is, and I cannot make heads or tails of it, go back to social media, right? And even like news channels these days, so many of them have become almost like entertainment instead of just reporting the facts. We all, as humans, have the need to be able to process facts, learn, gather more information, and make decisions ourselves. And especially we need to learn how to do this at a younger age so that when we're adults, we're more capable of being able to do that without questioning ourselves. And then that transfers into the ability to actually manifest our purpose. So this is huge. Deficiencies show up as vision a lot of times, and delusions, obsessions, difficulty kind of seeing the future, even difficulty seeing symbolism types of things. You know, you see some of those games where how many things can you see here, whatever, pick those out. And memory, big one. So the problem with this, I wrote it in one of my notes here, is that it results in illusion of what we think the world should be, and then for some reason or another it keeps disappointing because it doesn't really turn out that way, because it's based on Maya, it's based upon illusion, because we haven't figured out that we actually do know internally. We can process this and figure it out, and beyond that we might have a wisdom of knowing that doesn't even require figuring out. There's no need to have brain activity to do this, and that is really the primary activity of the third eye, to guide us, to be our guide on our journey of our purpose. Like the Little House on the Prairie syndrome, you know, I grew up watching that, and I thought that, you know, most men would be like Pa. That was pretty cool, you know. I didn't really have a father figure that I really wanted to relate to, so I chose Pa. And that was an illusion, because of course I'm going to be disappointed in life, because this is a movie. It's not real, you know. And so of course everything can be solved and it turns out great for everybody, and everybody can have this great emotional cry. But that's not real. And so me using that as a basis for judging whether or not something was all right is not abnormal, because that is kind of how we learn how to process things, by what we're taking in that is proving to us that we have good outcomes. Okay, but then at some point in time we're going to have to go back and do the balancing here. And, you know, sometimes this chakra is the one that shows up in adults, like very normally, easily to spot. It's you know, someone who says that they are, you know, they can't basically imagine certain things, or they can't put things on paper, they can't picture what things might be like. And it's not that they're not able to, but the brain is busy helping them figure out how to figure it out, that it's taking place of the actual knowing. And that's pretty normal and typical from experience around me and in myself. But this can really come into play and cause some problems for people when they feel like they like everything that they're doing may or may not be what they're supposed to be doing, because they don't know. And so balancing this chakra requires some work to reparent, right? And in this case, like reworld, whatever, the environment around a person. So again, back to the quieting things down, reducing distractions, doing symbolism, like creating mandalas, creating dream catchers, visual art, you know, hypnosis is good. Meditation is really, really good for the third eye. And as far as food, the third eye likes the berries, you know, and a little bit of wine. It's not a bad thing. Think about like the color of the night, you know, those things that are like the color of the night, and that are kind of light, like air, and sweet, enjoyable. So as far as yoga poses for this one, it's where we're taking the thinking brain and putting it below the heart. So we're letting it take a break. So dolphin pose, wide-legged forward folds, any forward folds, downward facing dog. You know, you can do tapping, the chi massage, can do, you know, just an actual massage around the face. Natural light, so less fluorescent and more natural, including the moon's light, the sun's light. All of this helps to bring in the natural activity of the third eye. As far as breaths, we can do skull shining, which is one part in and then 2 parts out. So basically we're keeping air away from the head, so eventually the head feels lighter. And then of course those long segmented breaths where you really kind of are getting into a place of paying attention to, okay, well, I've got 15 in breaths, 15 out. And you get to a place where you're not thinking anymore. And you're moving the breath up and down the spinal column. Okay, so, as an adult, you can ask yourself, what external messages were you given as a teenager that made you believe that what you knew was not right? You can also ask yourself, as an adult, did you ever lose the ability to trust yourself because something happened, you just left you reeling in shock? You never believed that this could happen, and all of a sudden it did. And then you felt the need to rethink everything you knew, because how could you trust yourself? You should have saw that coming. And there it was. So these are life experiences that almost everybody has. So realizing that when you feel like you have a lost sense of knowing where you're going and trusting yourself to guide yourself, you can always come back to these basic things that we talked about already to bring back that connection with the third eye, because it's still there. Is the crown chakra, and it is associated with the color of violet or white. So it's the highest frequency. And it is associated with the element of thought. So this one doesn't develop usually until adulthood, but messages are well on their way within us when we get to the point where we're actually ready to maybe ask those questions about our own spirituality and our connectedness to other things and to other people. So the traumas to this is forced spiritual dogma, or a lack of information or knowing, apathy, really, just not caring about it, or somebody saying, well, I think you're wrong. So what really is needed is spiritual freedom for each individual to be able to go on this journey within, this exploration, to find their own way of connecting with everything around them. You know, and of course it's way up here, and we have to go through all these other chakras. So getting everything else balanced is really doing the work so that we can have this connection. You know, I suppose you could have connection without everything else being balanced, but it can be more difficult to live, be, and do in the world without the other aspects. You know, ideally you have everything balanced, and then you balance the crown chakra. And in doing so, that's where you really find that you are able to have an experience of living that is the ultimate connection to everything, no matter what that is, whatever you think that the way of connecting to that Because in that, you see yourself very clearly making a difference in the little things and in the big things that you do. So the deficiency in this is someone who is on the side of saying, well, I don't need it, is then, of course, a spiritual cynicist, saying, well, it doesn't exist, right? Don't need to know, or I know everything, this is my belief, and this is the right belief, and I don't have room for anything else whatsoever. And then there's on, dominating others. This is my religion and my belief, and everyone shall have it. So this is a deficient emotional, spiritual development in a person or in a group of people. And on the excess side of this is like addiction to spirituality. Like, I'm so addicted to my spirit that I can't live, work, do, and be in this world. So that is more likely to happen. Well, actually, either one of them is more likely to happen when you spiritually bypass the work in the other chakras, because everything is built upon that. The problem of, in an imbalance is there's limited consciousness, there's limited awareness. And how can there be expansive awareness? So, obstacle to grace, and that is not just for others or divine, but also to the self. Living spiritually connected and balanced means that the whole view of the world and the view of the self is clear. The contact lens is clear at that time, complete awareness. So it doesn't matter what this spirituality looks like. I want to make that clear. It is the balancing of the sense of connection, which is what we're talking about here. So you might ask yourself a couple of questions. What is a problem in my life that keeps coming up? Really bad problem that keeps coming up. Okay, write it down. So what does your higher power look like? Or something that is bigger than you? What does that look like? Now ask that higher power, something that is bigger than you, the question about your recurring problem. And write down what that thing is that's bigger than you, what their answer is, or its answer is. So we could do this with almost any situation in our life, to remind our mind to basically get out of the way of this connection of, I am not responsible for every single thing that happens. And if I open myself to connection with something greater than me, there are other solutions that will open up every time. So the other things you can do to balance the crown chakra is meditation, of course, and some of the herbs that help detoxify the body, because if we can purify the system in a way that's healthy, that will definitely promote the natural sense of connection that we would have as adults. Reestablishing some sort of recurring spiritual event that you might, do in your life, habit or something that you do in your life. Many people, many yogis especially, have some sort of like an altar at their house where they might put things that kind of lift their spirits in that way. So maybe a mala, or like a picture of somebody that they revere in their tradition. It could be a candle, you know, anything that kind of just is a symbol of something greater than oneself. And as far as foods, I think we already talked about that. Poses, meditation, legs up the wall, shavasana. This heaven and earth one with qigong, so coming in and then feeling kind of that constant, like, elevating force and grounding at the same time, reminding that we are in this space in between. And then lots of mantra, lots and lots of mantra. Thank you. Bye.